You were sent in there not for committing a crime, not for harming anyone, not for terrorism or murder. You were sent in there for publishing a documentary film to Twitter. A judge said don't do it, you did it, and so he threw you in prison.
I did it. I knew they'd throw me in prison. I know if I give them any opportunity, they'd throw me in prison. But what that documentary shown to everyone who's watched it is it showed the corruption of the judiciary along with the government working together in order to silence people through intimidation or through NDAs. What you see in the film is NDAs.
Non-disclosure agreements.
Non-disclosure agreements, they pay people just to keep them silent. So you never get the story out there because people are being paid not to tell the story.
So this was the case of a Syrian teenager at a school, and I'm not looking to crack open the facts of it, but...
I'm not allowed to crack open the facts, I'll go straight back to jail.
So, I mean, and I'm not looking to violate any court orders here myself. I don't want to be thrown in jail or banned from the UK, but that's what the subject matter was. It was a lively debate. And, you know, I won't press you because I don't want to get you in trouble, but it was a real issue. And my view of it is essentially a judge said, your evidence in this documentary does not reach the evidentiary level to have it admissible in court.
Well, the judge.
Go ahead.
The judge ruled that 7 teachers that were covertly recorded were lying. All of them were lying. 5 pupils that come to court to testify, they were lying. He just ruled that everyone was lying. He doesn't say what, you know, in his summary, he says sometimes people just lie, they don't need a reason to lie, they just lie. So he found that 5 children committed perjury. That's what his ruling was. And the only person that told the truth was the Syrian refugee in question. So, but by coming to that finding, what he'd done by giving the injunction, preventing anyone from seeing the film, was preventing anyone seeing the evidence. So then no one can see that it's impossible to come to the verdict he come to if they can see the evidence.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, in America, there's a phrase, the Streisand effect. It's named after Barbara Streisand. She didn't want people taking photos of her home in Malibu, so all of a sudden everybody took photos of her home in Malibu.
Okay.
You know, no one would have been interested had she not said, you can't do that. So they ordered you not to make the film. By the time you took it down a couple weeks ago, it had, what, 167 million views?
Most watched film in British history.
Seems
but I think it took those views, and I'll be honest, when I made the decision to release the film, I was shitting myself. I was scared. I was scared, and I knew where it would end up. And I knew that by giving them that opportunity, it would give them the opportunity to hold me on segregation and solitary confinement. I knew that. I knew that it would give them the opportunity to mess with everything and play games with everything. But the British public need to know, because they're getting spoon-fed stories and narratives and agendas by the government and by the state, and they need to know the truth. It's like the grooming scandal, which is why I believe there's such a target on my back. They managed for decades to suppress it and silence it. They managed successfully to hide it. The police knew it was happening for decades. The government knew it was happening for decades.
This is the organized
rape. The media, all the media knew. None of them reported it, they all knew. All of them knew. So the last thing they want is citizen journalism. And I always say the mainstream media are the cancer and citizen journalism is the cure. We're uncontrollable. I learned this from you, Israel. I learned this from you, to tell the other side of the story that the public aren't getting. So with this story, they spoon-fed the entire population a narrative and an agenda-driven story about open border immigration and not hiding the realities and the problems that come with that. And they lied. So then I created my documentary, which gave people here. I didn't even give my opinion. I just said, actually, here's the evidence.
In his first public appearance since being released, right-wing activist Tommy Robinson did not hold back. Standing before a crowd of journalists outside the prison gates, Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, launched a scathing critique of the British legal and political system. He accused authorities of manipulating information and suppressing free speech, claiming that he was imprisoned not for violence, but for breaching a publication ban after posting a controversial documentary on social media. The film in question alleges a widespread cover-up involving grooming gangs in northern England. It claims that government agencies, police, and schools deliberately concealed abuse and shielded perpetrators, prioritizing political correctness over child safety. They didn't jail me because I lied, Robinson declared. They jailed me because I exposed what they wanted to hide. According to him, public trust in British institutions is at a breaking point, and the system is doing little to restore it. The documentary at the heart of his arrest reportedly includes leaked evidence and interviews suggesting that local authorities knew far more than they ever admitted. However, the courts rejected the documentary's validity, ruling that statements from teachers and students featured in the film were inconsistent and unreliable. That ruling, in turn, sparked backlash from Robinson's supporters, some of whom now accuse the legal system of deliberately ignoring credible evidence. If even clear evidence is being discarded, then we have to ask, what exactly are they trying to protect? Protester outside the courthouse, legal professionals, meanwhile, defended the court's decision, saying evidentiary standards exist for a reason, to ensure all cases are judged fairly and within the law. But the optics, critics say, continue to favor Robinson's narrative. Even some of his fiercest opponents admit that efforts to suppress his content may have backfired. Political communication expert Professor Alan McBride noted, "The more the authorities try to muzzle Robinson, the more they inadvertently amplify his message." Robinson, never one to shy away from controversy, framed his arrest as part of a wider campaign to silence dissent. They can't argue with me, so they lock me up. They can't bury the truth, so they silence the press. But every time they do, more people wake up. His words have reignited an already volatile national debate. Human rights groups and free speech advocates now find themselves walking a tightrope, defending the right to speak freely while condemning speech that can incite hatred. "We must defend the right to speak," said Rachel Goldsmith of Amnesty UK, "but we must also stand firm against hate speech and harmful misinformation." Robinson remains defiant. "If telling the truth puts me behind bars, then so be it. The British people deserve to know what's happening in their own country. The era of silence is over." Despite legal threats and takedown efforts, the documentary continues to circulate widely across social media and alternative platforms. One thing is clear, the more voices are silenced, the louder the resistance becomes. And in other major political news, during a fiery live broadcast, political journalist Christopher Hope left Labour leader Keir Starmer visibly rattled with a blunt question. Is Nigel Farage living rent-free in your head? The remark came just moments after Starmer delivered a major speech in the Northwest, a speech in which he unexpectedly singled out Nigel Farage and Reform UK by name. Starmer's reaction was swift and unmistakable, a moment that quickly began circulating online. Watch the clip for yourself, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Soap GB News. Prime Minister Nigel Farage has 5 MPs, you've got 403. Are you panicking because Reform is so far ahead in the polls, it seems? Is he living rent-free in your brain? You went to a state school, your dad worked in a factory, your mum worked in the NHS, so why has a public school-educated former city trader got more in common with the Red Wall than you have?
Well, I've set out my divide. I think the single most important thing is to make sure we stabilise our economy and build on that strong foundation the future of our country. And that is what we're doing. And we're seeing the early signs of that. Growth is up, the highest in the G7 this year. Interest rates have come down 4 times. So we're beginning to show what happens when you stabilise the economy. And I want to protect working people from Nigel Farage because I want to protect them from what he will do, which is exactly the same as Liz Truss, which will have a direct impact on their lives. And in relation to the second part of your question, I don't need lectures from Nigel Farage on what it means to be working people. I know what it means to work 10 hours a day in a factory 5 days a week. And I know that because that is what my dad did every single working day of his life. And that's what I grew up with. So I don't need lessons from Nigel Farage about the issues that matter most to working people in this country. Thank you, Chris.